Ladies and gentlemen, the following segment of the podcast is presented exclusively by the Heritage Foundation. For 52 years, Heritage has fought tirelessly for America's founding principles and advancing conservative public policies. Much more than a think tank, Heritage is a conservative policy powerhouse, fighting for the everyday American to advance common sense policies and dismantle the D.C. bureaucracy. Our founding fathers gave us an extraordinary system of government, and the Heritage Foundation is dedicated to defending the heritage and carrying on their legacy for future generations. So get involved by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda by visiting heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I want to thank you, America. Mr. and Mrs. America, I want to thank you. As our radio ratings start to come in, we are up big in every single market that has come in so far, and that's thanks to you. It's also what I tell people who come up to me and say, I'd like to get into radio, what should I do? I tell them, be yourself and tell the truth. And take stands that you believe in. Don't take stands just because other people take them. And that's the truth, too. Pete Hegseth this today, who I think is a terrific Secretary of Defense, as a matter of fact, talking about these alleged leakers and these reports on the leaks. And he says that really these people and this attack is designed to try and stop President Trump's agenda. That is his foreign policy agenda. Now, I've been warning here about these isolationists who come out of the Soros-Koch Quincy Institute and some of their other entities that they've created, Koch in particular. I've been warning about podcasters. I've been warning about people with subscription service platforms and so forth. They're out there. They're a small minority. They are a cabal, and they are pushing positions that are utterly anti-American, and they're not in our best interests. I mean, I think if you ask 9 out of 10 people on the street if it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, they'd say absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because people are smart. The American people are smart. What's interesting is these folks who want you to believe they have a bigger and broader influence than they actually do throughout the country and also with President Trump. These people have come up with nothing new. There's nothing new about their foreign policy. George McGovern used to spew it. In the 1970s, he was considered a leftist. Pacifism, isolationism, appeasement is not new. In fact, it's quite old. And it's resulted in the death of many, many people, millions of people. In the face of a regime that is an Islamist Nazi regime whose ideology is well understood, who says death to America over and over again, to make common good with these people, to interview these people, to embrace these people, to give aid and comfort to them by the way you attack those who dare to speak out and warn the American people about what's taking place. We've seen this throughout American history. It's about as close to treasonous as you can get. They are the modern-day Tokyo Roses, except the difference is they're Americans. Americans with mouthpieces, not foreigners. I want you to listen to Pete Hegseth on Fox and Friends this morning about what's taking place. Cut 8, go.
If you remember when this all started, the first go-around, because this is the second go-around, right? They peddle old stuff, they kick it back up. I said repeatedly, no one's texting war plans. You know why I said that? Because I'm in the bowels of the Pentagon every single day. Just 10 minutes ago, I was looking at actual war plans of things that were ongoing or pending things to happen. Because that's on a regular basis on classified systems. That's my job for the war fighters, for the President of the United States. I look at war plans every single day. What was shared over Signal, then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things. That's what I've said from the beginning. At the beginning, it was left-wing reporters from The Atlantic who got a hold of it and then wanted to create a problem for the president. This is what it's all about, trying to get at President Trump and his agenda. Now, here at the Defense Department, because, Brian, I want this to be very clear. We take the classification of information very important. It's very significant to us that we safeguard it. And so when we had leaks, which we have had here, we did a serious leak investigation. And through that leak investigation, unfortunately, we found some folks that we believe were not holding to the protocols that we hold dear here at the Defense Department. Through that investigation, they have been moved on, and that investigation continues. As a result of that, everything we do here is above board, trying to make sure that we safeguard information. In this point, those folks who were leaking, who have been pushed out of the building, are now attempting to leak and sabotage the president's agenda and what we're doing. And that's unfortunate. It's not what I do. It's not how we operate. And so you've got another allegation being pushed again, not based on how we're operating around here. We're for the warfighters. We're for the president. And none of this is based in reality.
You know, this is very important to understand. I know who these people are. I don't know about these three specifically. I'm talking about I know what this mindset is. I know where it comes from. I know who's pushing it. Radical libertarians, in the case of Koch, and American Marxists in the case of Soros. And they've come together to push the same agenda. They've created institutes together. They have created, as Rush would say, mind-numb robots who push this stuff, and they actually want you to believe the opposite of what you know to be true, that nuclear weapons in the hand of the Iranians is okay, and that any deal with Iran is okay. Just don't take military action to put an end to it. You know how long that military action would take? First of all, Israel will be the point of the spear, not us. But secondly, maybe 12 hours. That's it. The Israelis knocked out the nuclear site in Syria. In Syria. The U.S. policy was for them not to do that, but they did it anyway. Because they know the consequences of a mushroom cloud like I showed you over the weekend, or you can see on the internet. For the state of Israel, it would mean it wouldn't exist anymore. No prime minister in his right mind could ever tolerate a nuclear weapon in the hands of the enemy. And there are many in the Middle East. No American president can tolerate a nuclear weapon in the hands of people who share the same ideology, the same terrorist mentality as those who hit us on 9/11. You have to be out of your mind. And yet we actually have people who have platforms. We now have people who are embracing the enemy, who are promoting the enemy, and accusing America and Donald Trump and you and me of being warmongers. And now you have people who are leaking, who are alleged to have leaked. And what Pete Hegseth says, some of them are his friends. I don't know the facts. I'm just reading what I'm reading. Is that the effort now is to undermine and stop Trump's agenda. Trump is not a blind ideologue. He's quite the contrary. His eyes are wide open. The battle now is over what Witkoff is doing, if it's going to be good enough, if some deal that they want to negotiate can actually work, given what we know about these terrorists and how they blow off their obligations, because the hour's late. The hour's late. We don't have 10 years to play with anymore. And they've reached the point where they can make nuclear weapons. And all this talk about stopping them from making nuclear weapons through various arrangements and deals and so forth, they have violated every single one of them. Which is what you would expect. They're terrorists. They do not believe in upholding contracts. That's a Western idea. They believe destroying you and me is what God commands them to do. This is why they slaughter each other, because you have the purest Muslims against Muslims who want to live and let live in their own countries. And the Muslims who want to live and let live are the ones who they attack and brutalize and rape and throw in the prisons and so forth. These are so-called purist Muslims. These are fundamentalists. These are terrorists. And I could bring on a Muslim friend after a Muslim friend, whether it's the bank manager that I know, whether it's Zuhdi Jasser that I know, whether it's people I deal with in other things that I do that I know. They'll tell you exactly the same thing. They're scared to death of these terrorists. Or maybe the over 500,000 people who were slaughtered in Syria. They were Muslims, for the most part. Or the people being murdered now in Yemen by the Houthis. They're Muslims. Or the people being slaughtered in Iran. They're Muslims. But their ultimate goal is the United States. Their ultimate goal is the United States. I don't know why the ignoramuses have the following they have, but it's not unusual. Lindbergh was an isolationist. Right up to minutes before we were attacked at Pearl Harbor. They said, don't worry about Hitler. He's too far away. He's not aimed at us, and screw Europe. Just like you hear guys like Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, say, let's get out of NATO. Boy, is he out of his lane. Let's get out of NATO. The enemy would be thrilled with us getting out of NATO. And what if the Europeans are attacked? That's not our problem. I mean, we're not talking about ancient history here, America. We're talking about things that happened 80, 90, 100 years ago that resulted in over 400,000 Americans dying in battle. There wasn't a NATO before World War II, was there? There weren't American bases in Europe before World War II, was there? We're not an imperialist, colonialist country. We're Americans. And when people attack our country, they're attacking your brothers and sisters, your fathers and mothers, your ancestors who have fought for this country. And Pete Hegseth is right. These isolationists, I don't care if they hang around the White House. I don't care if they hang around TV studios. I don't care if they have their own microphones with their video cameras. I don't give a crap what they have. They're undermining this administration. That's what they're doing. And so we will see if there's a deal, if the deal is the kind of deal that we as the American people think is a good deal or not. That's what we do. Now, here's the other thing. The left-wing media like Dan Abrams and that crap site he created, Mediaite, or the Washington Compost, or the New York Slimes, or all the rest of them. To them, this is a big game. Does somebody at Fox question XYZ? Does somebody at conservative radio question XYZ? I'm doing exactly what I've done for a quarter of a century behind this microphone. I'm doing exactly what I did as a senior member of the Reagan administration. It's not a question of taking on a president who I love in the case of Donald Trump or Ronald Reagan. It's not a question of taking them on at all. A decision hasn't been made. The battle right now is the battle of ideas. The kooks, who I've already defined, and the rest of us. That's the battle. So we're supposed to be quiet and silent at a time like this? I'm not leaking. You're not leaking. We're not threatening the administration. We're not undermining the President of the United States or the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of State or anybody else. They are, in the liberal media, they want Trump to fail. They want the economy to collapse. They want Fox to go away. They want conservative radio to evaporate. That's what they want. I'm just laying it out here, folks, based on my own knowledge and experience. I have tons of faith in Donald Trump because he's not one of these Lilliputians. I have nothing but the deepest contempt for sites like Mediaite, the Drudge Report, for newspapers like the Slimes that covered up the Holocaust, and so, by the way, did the Washington Compost. I have nothing but contempt for the main networks, for CNN and MSNBC that embrace Hamas and Hamas's data, that trash our country, that trash the state of Israel. They do the same thing over at Mediaite. I have nothing but the worst contempt for these people because they contribute nothing to the public debate. They provide no knowledge to the American people. They are, in my view, inciting violence with the kinds of things they say and the people they highlight over and over again. And by the way, as you're about to find out, we're back to Hitler and the Democrats and the media. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. Rules for Radicals. As you know, we introduced this to you over 20 years ago, Saul Alinsky. Rules for Radicals. And there's a number of rules here. And the 13th rule, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. In other words, character assassination. This is what they do to Pete Hegseth. You'll notice the Democrats always have one or two targets in a cabinet, and they just keep up the drumbeat. Repetition is another Marxist fascistic form of propaganda. So their target, of course, is Pete Hegseth. Pete is a fantastic Secretary of Defense, absolutely fantastic. He's energetic, he's motivated, he's very, very knowledgeable from the ground level up. Make the enemy live up to their rules, meaning the rules of the radicals. It's all right here. They're working right out of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. I'll be right back. Folks, I need to talk to you about something crucial to the future of America. Our friends at the Heritage Foundation are on the front lines fighting for our conservative values. Heritage is dedicated to promoting policies that will help bolster our economy, protect our borders, and uphold the rule of law. They're working tirelessly to defend our Constitution and the principles that make America exceptional. To help accomplish this, they need you to complete their national survey on President Trump's agenda today. So you can participate in this survey by going to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Your responses are crucial to this survey, and they'll provide Heritage leadership with crucial feedback as they work closely with the folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. By completing this very important survey today, you're standing up for the values that have made this country great. And my friends at Heritage need you to act now to maximize their impact on President Trump's first 100 days. So please don't wait. Our future depends on you. Together, we can make a difference, and future generations inherit a nation that is free, prosperous, and strong. So please, right now, visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, complete your survey, and join the fight for America's future. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
The Mark Levin Show, live and national at 877-381-3811.
You got that right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Pete Hegseth, one more time. Interviewed by Brian Kilmeade. Cut 9, go.
You take this job, you come in with war experience and all your great background. Do you think there's a lot of people who don't want you there, and there's some type of deep state forces that want to make sure you don't stay there?
From day one, just like they've come after President Trump. I mean, I've gotten a fraction of what President Trump got in that first term. What he's endured is superhuman. It's not hard for me to do this job. I know exactly why I'm here. To bring war fighting and the war fighting ethos back to the Pentagon, to rip out the insidious ideologies and not compromise and not back down. To bring in new press voices into the Pentagon, which we've done, to reestablish standards and accountability, to not tolerate leakers, to 100% operational control of our border, to get rid of trans lunacy in the military. We haven't backed down. See, here's the thing. A lot of people come to Washington and they just play the game. And it's you punch their ticket and get along to go along. And, you know, start doing Meet the Press and go into the Council on Foreign Relations and spending time with all the new cocktail sipping crowd. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because President Trump asked me to bring warfighting back to the Pentagon every single day. Right. That is our focus. And if people don't like it, they can come after me. No worries. I'm standing right here. The warfighters are behind us. Our enemies know they're on notice. Our allies know we're behind them. And that, in this dangerous world, for the American people is what it's all about.
I've been on 2 bases over the last 2
All right, that's enough. I got it. Excellent. Right on. It's important to let the guests finish speaking without interrupting them. That's my view. Unless you actually run out of time, then that's the clock. That's the nature of the beast. But Pete's great. I haven't talked to him since. Don't get me wrong. I haven't talked to him since, but he's really great. Now, here's Bob Woodward on MSLSD. Now, why do we care about what Bob Woodward says? We don't. MSNBC hasn't changed since after the election. I thought they were going to change. I thought they were going to spin them off. I thought all these things were going to happen. CNN hasn't changed. It's the same old, same old. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the one that told you that the Democrat Party is not going to change, and the media are not going to change. They are laying in wait. They're waiting for mistakes or errors or what they perceive to be either, or to create them. To create controversy, to create scandal. That's why they go after Hegseth and some of the other. That's what they're about. This is their playbook, and they play it every single time when Republicans are in office. The same media, they covered up for Joe Biden. What I think is the scandal of all scandals ever. What the media did to the American people and what the Democrat Party did to the American people. They haven't earned anything. In fact, the only thing they've earned is our complete disrespect and disregard. But they're in our faces. They're in our eyes. And so they bring this guy Woodward back. And Woodward has nothing to add. And Woodward is interviewed by Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki, who literally worked for Joe Biden and knew that Joe Biden was incapable of being president of the United States. And she has her own show on MSNBC. Her own show. Cut 11, go.
One of those questions I always think about is, why does he keep him around? I mean, there's things like, well, he has to get another Secretary of Defense confirmed. That's not always that easy, but he does have a big majority in the Senate. He now, though, has made some big public mistakes. Trump has a pattern sometimes of wanting to control people. Is that part of it? Or why do you think
everything
he keeps
she
around?
said right there is incoherent. Doesn't even make any sense. Makes no sense when he wants to keep people around. Why does he do that? I mean, these things like, well, he has to get another Secretary of Defense confirmed. That's not always that easy, but he does have a big majority in the Senate. Of course, he doesn't. He now, though, he's made some big public mistakes there. Trump has a pattern of sometimes of wanting to control people. Is that part of it? Well, this doesn't even make any sense. But Hegseth hasn't done anything that should require him to resign. Period. Period. And he's doing excellent things at the Department of Defense. Excellent things. Did you hear any of this when it came to Robert Malley, who many people still don't even know? Robert Malley was our envoy negotiating with Iran. His father was a big commie and a big Islamist. He was a childhood friend of our Secretary of State at the time, Blinken. He reported directly to Blinken and to Biden. He had spies, literal spies, working for him, one of whom wound up in a top position at the Department of Defense. Another one wound up in the White House. And Malley himself was effectively a special pleader for the Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran, as are many of the Soros-Koch isolationist crowd. But this guy had power. Not just a podcast or a subscription-based platform. And they're passing information to the foreign minister of Iran. They're getting approval from the foreign minister of Iran on whether they should attend certain meetings or what kind of speeches they should give. It's all out there. I've talked about it. This is a massive scandal. You have a spy ring in the Biden regime. A close, dear childhood friend of the Secretary of State. And it got so bad they had to remove him. The belief is that he revealed classified information in some way that he wasn't supposed to reveal. We still don't have the answers. Still, after all this time, the FBI opened a full-scale investigation. We still don't have the answers. And yet they attack Pete Hegseth here. Pete Hegseth, the signal phone call, the first one. First of all, Pete Hegseth had nothing to do with that. And by the way, neither did Waltz. It was a staff guy. And I even feel bad for the staff guy because the way it worked was the iPhone held on to this clown at the Atlantic's number. Not that they called him. At some point, he had called one of them. So it was a technical issue. But it was an accident. It was an error. You actually have people working in the Biden regime, a spy nest, providing information to the Iranians, getting information to the Iranians when we're here at a dire crossroads on nuclear weapons. You didn't hear crap from Mark Warner. You didn't hear crap from Tim Kaine. You didn't hear crap from the media. Nothing. You didn't hear anything from Psaki. She was working at the administration at the time, running cover for the spy ring, I assume. And there's Bob Woodward. Never said a damn thing about it. None of the Democrats, the media, have said anything about Robert Malley and what took place. A spy ring in the Biden administration for the Iranians. And now we're supposed to demand that Pete Hegseth resign. Ain't gonna happen. We are Americans. We're not stupid. Not gonna happen. Go ahead on this Bob Woodward clip.
Trump doesn't worry about incompetence. He worries about loyalty.
Oh, shut up, you dumbass. You don't know a damn thing you're talking about. Nothing. You write these books, these gossip books. That's all you do. You take in millions and millions. None of your books are worth it. None of them are profound. You learn absolutely nothing. It's all gossip. That's it. That's it. And this is how, even Watergate. Wow, what investigative reporters. No, they weren't. You had the number 2 at the FBI, the deputy FBI director, who was feeding them everything. Just kept feeding them information. They were stenographers. It's not like they actually had to investigate anything. You see this fat slob Bernstein from time to time on TV? He sounds like a dumbass. Is that guy even capable of conducting an investigation of any kind? Ask yourselves, listen to this fool. Is he? No, I don't think so. And there was one interview done by a younger reporter that worked for the Washington Post, and he talked about Woodward at some length. I put it in on Freedom of the Press. You really ought to read it. Really exposes Woodward and exposes the Washington Post and Ben Bradley. You can't trust these people in what you're hearing. Psaki and Woodward. Are you kidding me? Tim Kaine, a complete fraud. Mark Warner doesn't care about our national security. He didn't care about Mali. Chris Van Hollen embracing an MS-13 wife beater. He's fought for this guy like he's never fought for a single citizen in his own state. Trying to create an issue. You've got the media that uses Hamas casualty numbers. Even Hamas last month, even they had to pull back and say, well, you know, we've been giving you bad information. Did you hear one agency, one media platform, any apologize? No. In fact, Leslie Stoll at CBS kept using them. Even after Hamas stopped using them. Go look at the Drudge Report today. You don't have to. I'm just saying it. Go look at this thing, this Mediaite that Dan Abrams created. Look at the slop, the crap, the hate, the vile that these morons are peddling. Peddling. I'd call it yellow journalism, but it's not journalism. It's just yellow. Like dog piss. That's all it is. Am I allowed to say that? That's not one of the 7 words, is it, Mr. Producer? No, I don't either. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our founding fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. Got something very exciting to announce after the top of the hour. Not about me, but something very exciting to announce. It's exciting to me. I think it'll be exciting to you. But what do I know? There's Jamie Raskin again. I don't think this guy actually has much of a job. He's on podcasts. He's on cable TV. He's everywhere. The guy's a Marxist. His father was a Stalinist. And it's amazing how the so-called media out there promotes these guys. They promote him. Just as they promote Bernie Sanders, who's a Stalinist. He's an absolute Stalinist. And they promote him. They pick out the most extreme freaks they can. I mean, they made AOC. AOC's a nobody. Even today, she's a nobody. Now they promote her, so she shows up in the polls. I mean, if you asked about Bugs Bunny, he'd show up number one in the Democrat polls, too, because people are most familiar with Bugs Bunny. Probably do a better job than most. But they go to the bottom of the barrel, whether it's the ideological barrel or the common sense barrel, or they pick people who are just foul-mouthed, and I mean constantly foul-mouthed. By the way, Mr. Producer, I don't mean to be mean or rude or anything else. Did you watch that Nancy Mace video that's everywhere? Where she got into it with some guy at a grocery store who said, why didn't she show up at some town hall meeting? No, he's obviously a huge lib and everything, but did you think he was that offensive? Let's be honest. I didn't think he was that offensive. I've had people say a hell of a lot worse to me. But didn't she kind of jump him? I don't think he jumped her. I must be missing something. I'm not trying to criticize Nancy Mace, but everybody's saying, look at this. Wasn't she great? Great at what? My take on her is she's a loose cannon, but that's just me. That's just me. What do I know? That's just me. Like when she went after Kevin McCarthy because he wouldn't bring up an abortion bill. Excuse me? An abortion bill? He said he would and he didn't, so I'm voting to remove him. Oy, oy, oy. But I looked at it, and I don't normally look at these things, but conservative sites were carrying it and praising, wow, Nancy, she really gave this guy hell. So they're basically exchanging the F word about every 14 seconds, even less than that, about every 5 seconds. Am I right, Mr. Producer? F you, no, F you, and F you, and no, F you. I said F you, F you, F you. Hey, buddy, yeah, F you, no, F you. Okay, great. But I know he's a lib. And libs are pains in the ass, let's be honest. They just are. But I don't really think the guy said anything to instigate anything. I mean, you folks can watch it yourself if you even care. I just thought I'd bring it up here because one person comes up, did you see that Nancy Mace video? I said, I saw it. I wasted about 90 seconds of my life, but yeah, I saw it. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Very excited about a couple of things that I want to share with you. You might say, Mark, what are you excited about those sorts of things for? Well, you're about to see. The Telegraph. The Japanese Navy unveils a railgun used to down China's missiles. Japan's Navy has unveiled a ship-mounted electromagnetic railgun intended to down incoming Chinese hypersonic missiles. The large, futuristic-looking weapon, and they have a photo of it, the weapon system was pictured last week undergoing advanced stages of testing on the flight deck of the experimental J.S. Asuka warship. Tokyo has been intensely focused on fielding its next-generation weapons as threats increase in the Indo-Pacific from China, Russia, and North Korea. Ooh, I wonder where their isolationists are. The railgun does not require explosives or propellant, but relies on electromagnetic energy to launch projectiles at supersonic speeds, providing a cost-effective and quick response to potential fast-moving missile threats. It fires at higher velocities than regular weaponry, with its ammunition traveling at 2,500 meters per second, compared to traditional tank guns, which fire shells at speeds of around 1,700 minutes per second. Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force said that Vice Admiral the commander of the self-defense fleet, had visited the Asuka, quote, to observe the latest status of the railgun, which is under development at the Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics Agency. Officials said the weapon would bolster naval missile defenses, having the potential to engage air, sea, and land targets with higher levels of accuracy than conventional munitions. Research into the new weapon system started in 2016, and it carried out its first onboard firing test in October 2023. The railgun supports the development of Japan's future combat readiness and national defense posture. And it goes on. Pretty cool, don't you think, Mr. Producer? Want to hear another one? From our Israeli friends. In the past, I've hinted that they've been working on laser technology. This is from the end of January this year, early February. National Defense Magazine.org, Israel's Iron Beam set for historic deployment. Haifa, Israel. If all goes as planned later this year, the Israel Defense Forces will be the first military on Earth to deploy a high-energy laser weapon, the Iron Beam air defense system. It could prove to be a watershed moment in the history of military technology. Directed energy weapons have been the subject of speculation, research, development, and testing for decades. It's almost science fiction, with numerous technological dead ends and canceled programs. Smaller laser weapons that can shoot down small drones close by a vehicle have been used or are close to a high technology readiness level. But so far, there have been no large orders forthcoming from the U.S. military or others. Consequently, as the report Directed Energy Weapons Supply Chains published by the National Defense Industrial Association's Emerging Technologies Institute, holy mackerel, in January 2024 pointed out, the United States has no established laser weapon industrial base to speak of. No supply chain, no factories, no cadre of workers. The U.S. military has fewer than 20 laser weapon systems, all of which are built in laboratories, according to a list provided by the Pentagon's Joint Directed Energy Transition Office. So we have nothing. Zero. We don't have an Iron Dome like Israel. We don't have laser weapons. In a briefing with reporters in early December at the headquarters of the Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, that's Israel, company chairman Yuval Steinitz did little to mask his pride, calling the Iron Beam a scientific and technological breakthrough and emphasizing that Israel had accomplished what so many others could not. The Israelis are on the cutting edge of technology. Can you imagine if they didn't have to fight all these wars? I mean, how much more they can contribute to the world? The crux of the problem in the past was the atmosphere, he explained. Excuse me. Lasers do fine when they are small and are used for applications such as performing eye surgery. But once they are weaponized, their air density begins to disperse the energy, making them ineffective. The larger the beam, the more atmospheric interference. We had to find a way to bypass the atmosphere and kill the lasers as strong as, keep the lasers as strong as when they were fired, he said. Israel has an immediate and pressing need for a directed energy weapon. It has been under attack since October 7 and since then has used its Iron Dome system to ward off ballistic missile and drone attacks from Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthi rebels in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza Strip, as well as 2 major direct attacks from Iran. The Iron Dome detects threats, then fires Tamar missiles to intercept and destroy missiles before they reach their targets. The Iron Beam will be integrated into the already proven system, make it even more effective, Steinitz said. The technological breakthrough was choosing to shoot hundreds of small, coin-sized beams at a target rather than just one large beam, he said. The small beams do not get dispersed in the atmosphere. However, they are not powerful enough to destroy a target by themselves. Once a potential threat is detected, Iron Beam shoots hundreds of small beams in its direction. Just one of them may hit the target, he said. When that one beam is detected through a telescope reflection striking the target, more beams are redirected its way. So it shoots a bunch of beams. Once the one beam hits and they know it, all the others coalesce. They aggregate into one massive beam. Every time one hits the larger target, it stays locked, and more energy is concentrated on the target. So it's, in your mind's eye, it's amazing, isn't it, Mr. Producer? It's not sufficient to hit anywhere on a missile or drone. The beams must concentrate on a vulnerable spot in order to disable it. This is precisely the problem confounding the U.S. Navy as it has tried to deploy high-energy lasers on ships at sea. Vice Admiral George McGovern, commander of U.S. Naval Forces, Central Command, 5th Fleet, Combined Maritime Forces, explained during a conference in Bahrain. It's a technology piece that we've been working through for years. After locking onto a target, Iron Dome's powerful algorithms take over in a continuous feedback loop, taking place at the speed of light, Stein had said. Soon enough of the small beam's energy lands on that sweet spot and disables the target. So in other words, they're using the technology they developed on the missile-to-missile attacks with their Iron Dome. The algorithms, the locking in, the continuous feedback, the loop back into the computers, for their lasers, Mr. Producer. For their lasers. The system will automatically decide which is the better intercept, the small missile or the laser weapon. Iron Dome already has a 95% success rate. That could be higher after the Iron Dome is integrated with the lasers. Iron Beam has been tested and will continue to improve its range, he said. What Israel managed to do, a feat the U.S. military and industry so far have failed to accomplish, may nevertheless end up as a boon to Israel's closest friend and ally. In December 2022, Rafael entered into an agreement with the U.S. defense contracting giant Lockheed Martin to develop a version for the U.S. market. This is what drives me nuts. What does Israel ever do to us? Israel develops cutting-edge technologies that no other country on the face of the earth seems to be able to do, and they give them to us. Because they're an ally. Because they know that we've supported them, that we've provided them with resources too. Excuse me. And so they will make them for the United States market, basically for Lockheed Martin, and develop a version that Lockheed Martin can develop on its own. Steinitz declined to say how many Iron Beam systems the Israeli government intends to acquire initially. However, there are 10 Iron Dome batteries spread throughout the nation, according to published reports. And the company, Rafael, aspires to expand the systems market beyond Israel. Rafael continues to bring variations of Iron Beam to trade shows in the United States and Singapore. Ultimately, it will be up to the Israeli government to decide which nations Rafael can sell to, a company spokesperson said. If the Israeli Ministry of Defense deems it acceptable to share this technology with our friends and partners in the world, besides the United States, then it's something that we will likely get a lot of interest in. So think about that. Now, they are way down the road on this, but there's still little perfections that they have to make into this system. But they're obviously deploying. Just as the Japanese are deploying their system. I'd say this is good information for the world, wouldn't you, Mr. Producer? That's why it's important to spend the money in the right way when it comes to defense. We have undermined our R&D, we've undermined our development, our technological development, and it's going to harm us. It's going to hurt us. And so some of these gaps will be filled by the Israelis, like the Iron Dome that President Trump wants to build. They're going to need the technology that Israel has, and they've created. And they're going to need our technology in other parts of the world. That is the United States' technology. And then when it comes to this laser, we're going to need the technology that Israel has developed since we have not. And I'm sure that'll be a big, important improvement to the United States' national security, too. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you've paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans. Now, this railgun that the Japanese are perfecting, electromagnetic gun. I'm sad to say the U.S. Navy suspended its own railgun program in 2021 after a decade in development that cost more than $500 million over significant power and overheating challenges. So we've not been able to overcome these things. I mean, you have to ask, what's going on here? China has been developing its own electromagnetic gun for years under a shroud of secrecy. 2018 photographs showed Chinese warships, or a warship, a landing craft equipped with a prototype electromagnetic railgun. India, Russia, Turkey have also tested prototypes. Excuse me once again. This laser, the Israelis have developed it. We've abandoned that effectively too. It's kind of troubling, isn't it, Rich? I mean, we should be in front of everybody on this stuff. I mean, it's like when Reagan came out with Strategic Defense Initiative. The Democrats fought it. The media fought it. The bureaucracy at the Pentagon fought it. We should have an Iron Dome right now. The Israelis signed a memorandum of understanding, took the original idea, and then took it sky high and developed it over a period of decades into the Iron Dome. It's really quite troubling to me that we have an enemy within. We have a fifth column, as it's called. You know, they're too busy trying to get rid of Hegseth, or last month it was Mike Waltz. Now it's Hegseth. Who knows who it'll be tomorrow? They do not unite behind America. And it's not just the Democrats. It's not just the Marxist Islamists. It's the radical libertarians and these isolationist boneheads. Same thing. Same thing. So you've got this railgun in Japan. You've got this laser weapon almost perfected by the Israelis. And you see both of them are doing this because in the case of Israel, of course, it's dire. The circumstances are dire. It's survive or die. And Japan, sees it the same way with China. China's right off the shore. Pretty much. You've got North Korea, you've got China. So it's either develop and have cutting-edge technology or lose. Or lose. And that's a big part of the problem. When people say, well, you know, you just manage Iran and get out of NATO. These are very stupid people. I mean, they may be smart in some respects, but otherwise they're very, very stupid people. I don't even talk to them anymore. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to waste my time with them. It's just ridiculous. There are better things to do, and I'll talk to you instead. I'd rather talk to you. Now, I put out a challenge out there. I believe it was last week, Mr. Producer. I put it on the internet, on my various platforms with millions of you reading it. I put it out over radio with millions and millions of people listening to it, including the slip and fall lawyers, the ambulance-chasing lawyers, some of whom are former federal prosecutors, some of whom are defense counsel, whatever they are, it doesn't really matter. And I asked. And other conservatives wisely have picked it up. Other people on Fox wisely have picked it up. Other people on radio wisely have picked it up, which is, how do you give due process to 21 million illegal aliens? Number one, how do you identify them all? Number two, these so-called immigration administrative courts are already 1.5 million illegal immigrants behind, either because they don't show up or they just can't process them on time. So how do you do this exactly? And what level of due process do they get? Which branch gives them due process? These are important questions for the crowd that really doesn't support deportation. That's what it's all about. And I have another question for you folks that really is important. When the Democrat Party and Biden and their media pushed for open borders, got open borders, and saw millions and millions of people had come into this country, what were their plans for due process on deportation? The answer is there were no plans. It was going to be de facto amnesty. That these people will get to stay the rest of their lives, then they have birthright citizenship. And by the way, with the latest rulings of the Supreme Court, I don't know where we're going to go. This birthright citizenship, don't get your hopes up so much. We now see Neil Gorsuch with weak knees. It's unbelievable, Gorsuch. Weak knees. Roberts is sort of leading the pack with weak knees, and then you got Barrett who throws in from time to time. Kavanaugh throw in one of the cases. So at best, you're seeing an inconsistency here. And I think the tougher the case, the less likely they're going to follow the Constitution. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying the less likely they will. I'm getting more and more disappointed in what I see from Gorsuch here. I'm really quite shocked. I haven't given up on him. I mean, in the sense that he voted with Roberts, I think it was today, 5-4, and the three losers, the three crackpots. Notice they never break ranks, those three. Never. They're good little Marxists. They never break ranks. But Gorsuch shouldn't have broken ranks either. And Gorsuch and Kavanaugh shouldn't have broken ranks on Saturday either. It's problematic. I'll be right back. Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you've paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans.
Mark Levin says today what the backbenchers will repeat tomorrow. Call Mark at 877-381-3811.
Lawrence Tribe is a doddering old fool. He's been a doddering old fool for a long time. At one point, he was a doddering young fool. So he's been a doddering young fool and a doddering old fool. And speaking of doddering old fools, there's Wolf Blitzer, who's barely awake when he does his show, and asking questions, one doddering old fool to the next. And, of course, Mediaite pushes this. This was sent to me. Mediaite is the sort of Jerry Springer site of websites, which makes sense since Stan Abrams founded it, and he's the Jerry Springer of cable. It's a whole circle of jerks here, Mr. Producer. So here's Lawrence Tribe on CNN today. Now keep in mind, Harvard is taking $2.2 billion of our money this year. Trump says no. Harvard has a tax-exempt status. Why? Nobody knows why these Ivy League schools have tax-exempt status. But they have $53 billion sitting in banks called endowments that gain interest over and over and over again. That's not taxed. Pay a fair share there, right? Right, Harvard? Pushing their Marxist ideology. And yet, as typical, they live differently. And so they've done very little to stop anti-Semitism on their campus. They promote DEI, which is an unconstitutional, backdoor affirmative action. It's racism. And they said, you don't get to tell us what to do. Okay, well, we're taking your taxes. We're taking your tax status away, and do as you wish. Oh, that's Hitler. Let me tell you something very quickly. My wife and my mother-in-law are not with me this week. They flew to Poland. Every 5 years in Poland, organizations come together in what's called the March for Life. And these individuals, Jews and non-Jews, they go to the site where the trains emptied their train cars of Jewish prisoners that they had swept up through Europe, citizens off the streets, in their homes, wherever. They fly to Poland, they go to the site where the trains are, and they walk the 2 miles from that location to a death camp called Auschwitz. And they walk the same path, on the same dirt, on the same stones, as all those Jews who were sent to their death. And they enter Auschwitz, where they see this massive assembly line of death. They see the gas chambers that were set up as showers, to look like showers. They can see the walls where people scratched to get out with their fingernails as they were being smothered with their babies and their children in their arms. From there, their bodies would be taken to crematorium and burned into ashes. And a stench could be smelled 50 miles away. And these gas chambers and these crematorium never stopped. They worked 24/7. And there are other locations where there are literal ovens. Lines and lines of them. Where they would push human beings alive, screaming and kicking, into the ovens alive, and burn them alive. And they would remove what's left of their bodies and send them to the crematorium as well. There are massive graves there before they became more efficient at mass murder. They're graves with thousands of people in them. Many of them were buried alive. Many of them were mowed down by machine gun turrets. Just mowed down. Of course, before they did this, they would pull the gold teeth out of anybody's mouth who had gold teeth with pliers. They would shave their heads, and they'd use their hair to make dolls for their children or to stuff mattresses. And in some cases, they would take the skin off the bodies. In some cases, people living, to make lampshades. Auschwitz, Dachau, on and on and on. The Holocaust. Just one word. And we literally had people in this country calling Donald Trump and others Hitler. Hitler. Now, obviously, that is an incredibly horrific, offensive thing to say to Donald Trump. But think about the people who are left, and there aren't many left, who survived the Holocaust to hear this, and they live in America. Some fat-ass former professor, some fat-ass former senator on MSNBC, some punk host, some punk guest professor, that this is like Hitler, they have no idea. They have no idea. No idea whatsoever. 80 years ago next week, Dachau was liberated in Bavaria. This is a very important time 80 years ago because most of the people who survived the Holocaust in another 5 years, as this March of the Living occurs every 5 years, won't be alive. They won't be alive. And this is why what happened on October 7th is so important to so many people. They did not just be forgotten, but that there be no ceasefire. No ceasefire. No survivability for Hamas. None. And yet Qatar right now, listen to me, Qatar, which funded Hamas, multi-billions of dollars, Qatar, which is serving as our mediator, which is really kind of a disgrace. Qatar is now, I saw this site from an individual who would know, is trying to get a long-term ceasefire, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, where Hamas would survive in exchange for all the hostages that are left. They believe 21 are alive, but they actually don't know. So Hamas would live. Netanyahu says Hamas is not going to live. On April 12th, 1945, 80 years ago, 10 days ago, Dwight Eisenhower, George Patton, Omar Bradley visited the Ardurf concentration camp. And they couldn't believe what they saw. Some of the train cars still had people in them, but they were dead. They had suffocated. They opened the doors. You could smell death miles away, they said. Miles away, as the bodies had been rotting. They opened up warehouses and literally thousands of bodies, starved human beings with just bones and flesh. Dwight Eisenhower, in a letter to Army Chief of Staff George Marshall, he wrote, "The things I saw beggared description. I made the visit deliberately in order to be in a position to give first-hand evidence of these things, if ever, in the future, there develops a tendency to charge these allegations merely to propaganda. And yet, we have people like Carlson and Rogan who give voice to the most loathsome people. Eisenhower, the supreme commander in the Allied expeditionary force in Europe, orchestrated the defeat of Germany's Third Reich. And while his role as military leader, this is NPS.gov, while his role as a military leader was important, Eisenhower was equally crucial in the documentation of the Nazi brutality and the truth of the Holocaust, because you weren't going to get it in our newspapers. Eisenhower's efforts to document the reality of the concentration camps was driven by a profound sense of duty, both to history and humanity. He knew that history was bound to repeat itself if not properly addressed. It's what he told people. He felt it was his responsibility to ensure that the horrors of the Holocaust was witnessed throughout the world. I'm going to take a short break, and I want to finish what I started. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you've paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans. George Patton, Omar Bradley, leadership at Dwight Eisenhower visited this Hordorf concentration camp. American troops would also discover and liberate multiple other camps, including Dora Mandelbaum, Dachau, Mauthausen, and Buchenwald. Eisenhower, Patton, and Bradley visited this concentration camp. While driving towards the camp, the surrounding atmosphere was overwhelming with the smell of decaying flesh, dead bodies littering the streets. Eisenhower had, quote, never been so angry in his life, unquote, stating that, quote, the English language didn't even have words that could describe what we saw. Eisenhower wrote to Winston Churchill following his time at the death camp, stating that everything you read in the paper does not adequately describe what has really happened here. He was profoundly impacted by the horrors that he witnessed, demanded that newspaper editors, representative groups, German civilians, Allied soldiers bear witness. Upon his orders, American troops came and photographed the camp to document its horrors. U.S. troops in the surrounding area were brought to Hordorf to bear witness. Eisenhower was forever changed by the horrors that he witnessed, so much that he kept the images that he had taken in the den of his Gettysburg home. Let's see here. On April 19, 1 week after he visited Ohrdruf, Eisenhower wrote to General George Marshall, Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, insisting that more reporters, dignitaries, more members of Congress bear witness to the same scenes he had experienced. He said, and I quote, conditions of indescribable horror prevail. I have visited one of these myself, and I assure you that whatever has been printed on them to date has been an understatement. Eisenhower's message to Marshall was powerful. It spurred action. In June, when Eisenhower returned to the United States following the German surrender, he was asked by reporters about whether publishing stories and photographs of concentration camps had been a wise idea. He said, I think people ought to know about such things. There's a 45-minute or so video that was put together by the Israeli military. Of the things that were done to the Israelis, the Jews, on October 7th, less than 2 years ago. And much of the video was taken by the killers, who were laughing, who were proud of what they were doing. It's my understanding President Trump saw that video and was disgusted. Strong military men saw that video and they could barely withstand it. The gang rapes, the disembowelment of human beings as they're alive, decapitation with metal shovels of babies, the tying of two babies together and setting them on fire together. The wanton execution. Is on this video. I've been calling for its public release. Apparently many of the families involved don't want it released. Bits of it had gotten out on the internet. But I've called, and I called back then, for the full release so people can know exactly what took place. And I want to say this as boldly as I can to the Israelis and to their government. Whatever is negotiated, in the end it doesn't matter. You need to take those damn nuclear sites out. Come hell or high water, regardless of the consequences. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. It's the Lawrence Tribe on CNN today. He's a man who is effectively witless. He's the Joe Biden of the bar, if you will. And so, of course, Mediaite feels the need to promote it because they are a complete sleaze operation, thanks to the hairless Dan Abrams. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I don't exactly have a full head of hair, but I don't glue squirrel to the top of my head to pretend otherwise. But Jerry Springer of Cable, a.k.a. Dan Abrams, does, and he's hired these clowns. What's that guy's name? Colby something or other? I forget his name. Who runs the operation? He's the head clown at Barnum and Bailey over there. And then, of course, they have Wolf Blitzer at the Constipated News Network, and boy, does this Wolf fit the bill there. Constipated always on that face of his. Here we go. Cut 5. Go.
The university says its constitutional rights have been violated. Harvard. As I said, you aren't involved in this lawsuit, but help us better understand the claim that Harvard is making.
Well, the basic claim is one that really connects what's going on here to what's gone on throughout history when autocrats and tyrants and basically mafia-like leaders decide that.
Right, let me stop. That's enough. I don't want to get into this guy. He talks about Trump and the Third Reich and Orban and Hungary. Another man who's trying to protect his country and his borders and so forth and so on. This is it. These guys are radical leftists, and in a couple of weeks I'm going to tell you what I've done about it, what I've written. I'm going to give you the title of the book. I'm going to give you a feel for what this book's going to be like. It doesn't come out for many months, but I can't hold back anymore. I just can't. There's too much going on here, and I take these people straight on. People in our country, what they're trying to do to our system of government, our Constitution, this whole idea of autocracy and tyranny, this whole idea of democracy and republicanism, constitutionalism, I'll be honest with you. I handed this book in Saturday late afternoon to the publisher and to my editor. And my publisher, it was obviously Easter, got back to me on Monday. And she said, I tore through your book. It's the greatest book you've ever written. And I'm thinking, okay, you're right, she said. That you've delved more into your own philosophy and how you approach these things than you have in any book you've ever written. And I would need her permission to read the email, but it was unbelievable. I've never received an email like that from my publisher. She says it'll be the greatest book you've ever written, and it'll stand the test of time. And so I'm very excited about sharing it with you. Now, what I'll do in a few weeks is not share the book with you, but give you a feel for what it is. But I have to wait, and so I will. Patience is not my virtue, even though it's said to be a virtue. It depends on the circumstance. This will be one of the most concise books I've ever written. It's not going to be a tiny book, but most concise. And probably, for me as the author, the most difficult book I've ever written. To try and keep it concise. There are going to be some very, very heavy issues, but broken down in plain English. Because I want you, as you read the book, should you choose to mentally, to intellectually participate in the book. To think about what I'm saying, to think about what others have said, to weigh one against the other. And that's the point. Obviously, I'm leaving out the core issues for now. I'll get to it in a few weeks. But I think you'll find it intriguing and very compelling and very informative. We have a lot of people in this audience who aren't college educated. You don't have to be college educated to read this book. We have a lot of people in this audience who have advanced degrees. And I want to congratulate you. It's not easy to get an advanced degree, but I think you're going to gobble up this book as well. When I wrote this book, I was thinking of you, my audience. It's a very diverse audience. People with all kinds of backgrounds. When I go to a restaurant, a waitress comes up to me, is a listener. When I go to a seminar, a PhD comes up to me, who's a listener. So I understand all this. And you want to make it as intellectually bulletproof as possible. Not from the left. I don't care about them. But you want to make sure it's internally logical and rational. And so, as you piece a book together like this, it takes some time. It takes an enormous amount of, I won't say brain power, but concentration. And so it's not something you can sit down, or at least I can't, write in 10 minutes. I'm always amazed, America, Mr. and Mrs. America, I'm always amazed at the people who are on TV almost 24/7, on radio, doing podcasts, who out play golf on the weekends, or, go on vacations on the weekends, or whatever. I'm always amazed at how quickly they can write a book. Aren't you, Mr. Producer? It amazes me how quickly they can write a book. Because most of them don't. And that's a racket I never want to be a part of, ever. Never. I told you a long time ago, Rush Limbaugh told me something when I was getting started in radio. He said he lives by it and he survives by it. He said the most important thing you have as a radio host is your audience. The company doesn't matter. The corporation. The executives don't matter. I mean, you want to get along with them. That's not his point. But if you don't have a relationship with your audience, you have nothing. And when you come under attack, people trying to destroy you, character assassinate you, blow you off the air, it's your audience that protects you and defends you. It's your audience. It's not the corporation. It's not the executives. They cut and run. It's not even other people in this business. They cut and run too. I've certainly seen that. It's you, the people in the audience. And I've never forgotten this. And I never will forget it. I'm very grateful for you folks. Very grateful. And I try to do the very best I can in the course of this program to make it worth your while, and even more than that, to try and advance our cause of patriotism, Americanism, liberty, security. And so Lawrence Tribe goes on, and I won't play it for you to compare Trump, autocrats, and others of his ilk, of that ilk, I should say. And CNN brings these people on. They know what they're going to say. They know how they're going to say it. MSNBC, the same thing. These networks have not changed. CNN has absolutely no legitimate ratings whatsoever to be on the air. But there it is, pumped up by a major corporation. MSNBC is horrific ratings, same thing. To me, it is a cauldron of riotous violence waiting to explode. That's what it is. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. We have our friend, Josh Hammer. He's author of a great book, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. Now, the interesting thing about this book, one of the best books I've read on the issue of Israel, is it's about more than Israel. It's about us. It's about Western civilization. Josh Hammer, I want to welcome you back. Mr. Producer, go ahead and link to Amazon, and hopefully Amazon actually has his book this time. That would be a good thing. And I understand it does. You order it, and you'll have it in a few days. And so in the context of your book, Josh Hammer, for some reason there's a debate over whether Iran should have nuclear weapons or not. Why the hell would we have a debate over whether Iran should have nuclear weapons or not when he keeps talking about the death to America and funded Hamas's attack on October 7th? What's the debate?
It's a great question, Mark, and it's wonderful to rejoin you. Thank you so much, as always, for the incredible support for this book project, Israel and Civilization. You know, our success in selling the book would not be the same today were it not for your tremendous efforts.
My honor.
I'm really just grateful for you. So the Iran question is that is the question right now. And Mark, your Fox News monologue over the weekend was 10 out of 10 sensational stuff. I watched it as soon as the Passover holiday ended. I was totally fixed to my television, so I can only hope to add to what you've already said there. But I will add to what you've already said by telling a little bit of a personal anecdote. So I was speaking about all these issues, Israel, foreign policy, and so forth, at a conference in Washington, D.C. last summer. It was for YAF, Young America's Foundation, one wonderful organization. They have conservative outreach and programming for conservatives on high school campuses, college campuses. So I was speaking about Israel and U.S.-Israel relations for a college conservative leadership conference in the nation's capital. And I noticed standing in the back of the room, Mark, this guy who was dressed a little funny. You know, he wasn't dressed like a normal American kid would be dressed. He wasn't wearing a polo shirt or a T-shirt. And he was vigorously nodding along. Like his head was like a bobblehead doll, like vigorously up and down to basically my entire cadence, all my words there. And I kind of made a mental note, and I said, I'm going to approach this guy after the talk and figure out what his deal is. So it turns out I actually did not have to approach him because he approached me. So this guy was, I forgot his name, unfortunately, but he was born in Tehran. He was born and raised in Tehran. His family fled when he was around 16, 17 years old. And he told me that he so enthusiastically agreed with my speech and the necessity of U.S.-Israel relations there and the fact that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon there and just the general evil of the fanatical Islamist malocracy, the Ayatollah regime in Iran there. And he told me that in state school in Iran, he went to their equivalent to public school, from K through 12, their version of the Pledge of Allegiance. So here it's obviously, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. I kid you not, Mark, their version of the Pledge of Allegiance is they have all the kids get up, put their hands on their heart, and they apparently say, I solemnly vow to do all that I can today to bring death and destruction to the little Satan of Israel and the big Satan of America.
Unbelievable.
They say it in schools every day, and they act on that. They act on that impulse. They killed hundreds and hundreds of our soldiers in the Iraq war with the roadside IEDs. We saw it at Tower 22, the military base in the far-flung corner of Jordan in January of 2024. Mark, they've been doing this ever since the hostage crisis that launched the regime back in the Jimmy Carter presidency. So it's evil stuff. You have to be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Like, something actually has to be wrong with you if your mentality is that this regime should have a nuclear weapon.
And I find those who oppose taking out those nuclear sites, which would probably take 10 or 12 hours with Israel taking the lead. I'm just being honest about it. And not to downplay the violence, it would be very violent, but less violent than a nuclear weapon. I find the response to be mostly sloganeering. Sloganeering and promises that it's manageable. What kind of insanity is that?
Well, it's pure virtue signaling, sloganeering. It's by people who you're totally right. It's by people who think that this will be more complicated than it is. And there's a bit of an obfuscation going on here. They're deliberately not calling it honestly, these folks here, because they're making it out to be that the folks like me and you who are committed to Iran not having a nuclear weapon, they're painting us as the folks who want to occupy Iran the same way that the United States had a presence in Iraq and Afghanistan. But no one is saying that. Literally no one. I don't know a single person who was saying that. I literally scratch my head. I could go to my Rolodex on my phone. No one wants this. It's a pure straw man. It's a pure, unadulterated straw man there. There is no one doing that. Literally all we are saying is that Israel can take the lead on this. Iran is a tremendous threat to America, no doubt about that, but they are an existential threat to Israel. So Israel can take the lead on this. All the United States has to do is supply the occasional bunker buster bomb, maybe some midair refueling support there. There are some logistics that would be tremendously helpful if not necessary, but that's it. That's basically it. You do that, you cover for Israel at the United Nations when all the usual jackals at the United Nations, the Arab world, the third world hooligans, when they start crying foul, you cover for them diplomatically there, and that's essentially it, Mark. This is really not World War III or anything like that.
Exactly. And Iran's air defenses, as everyone knows, have been weakened. The people of Iran, the vast majority of them, hate this regime. This regime is broke. I mean, but let's look at it the other way, too. Here we've been warned, we in the United States, that these people want to destroy us. As you point out, every morning they talk about it. They swear to it. They take an oath to it. They get nuclear weapons. They perfect those nuclear weapons. The idea that that's manageable. So our generation, we have been warned right now of what these people want to do and what they're trying to achieve in terms of their destructive ability. Would we not be the first generation that I can think of that actually turns our back on the next generation and says, this is your problem? Hold on to your thought, Josh Hammer. And by the way, we're going to get to his book, too. It's a great book, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. I really want you to understand why he wrote this book, what's in this book, and to grab your copy, too. It's on Amazon.com. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Josh Hammer, the book is Israel and Civilization. It's on all my platforms. You can get it at Amazon.com. I strongly encourage you to grab this book because this book is, it universalizes this argument of what's going on in Israel and so forth and makes it clear that this is a battle for civilization. And you know what, Josh Hammer, you better than I can expand on that. So that's what your book in major part is about. So you go ahead.
Well, Mark, we hear so often that Western civilization is at a crossroads, and it's certainly not that I disagree with that. I actually emphatically agree with that. But I'm a lawyer, you're a lawyer. Lawyers like to define terms here, so let's define what we're talking about here. When we say that Western civilization is at a crossroads, what exactly is at a crossroads? And in the book, I argue that Western civilization is essentially synonymous with the Bible, with the Judeo-Christian tradition, going as far back as God's revelation to Moses and the Israelites congregated there at the base of Mount Sinai. And I painstakingly demonstrate in some of the chapters of this book, Mark, just how much the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, and really in many ways Judaism itself has so deeply impacted the English common law to the American founding, the United States constitutional order, frankly, even day-to-day ethical norms that we might take for granted. I mean, something as basic as the golden rule, treat others as you would like to be treated. A lot of people don't really pause to realize that this actually comes from Leviticus chapter 19. That's the imperative to treat a stranger as your fellow. So the book essentially argues, Mark, that we in the West, Jews and Christians alike, we face three threats, three hegemonic threats that could potentially, God forbid, destroy us. Those threats, in no particular order, are wokeism, Islamism, and what I call global neoliberalism. It's basically the United Nations, the World Economic Forum. Think of John Lennon's song Imagine, basically playing out on a geopolitical stage there. And I argue that if you want to defeat these forces, if you want to roll back these forces for good, you have to stand for something. Simply just standing for values neutrality and just saying the chips will fall where they may, that's not an inspiring argument. If we're going to turn back these forces, we have to make a stand here. And that stand for Jews and Christians alike should be our joint shared biblical heritage, our inheritance. That is what made us great in the first place, and that, I argue, is what will make us great again.
Mm-hmm. You do that as the foundational point of the book, and you do more than that, too. Actually, this book is very compelling, folks. Civilization is on the line. One of the things you say is, we don't push back. We let them control the culture. We let them control the debate. Explain that, too.
Well, the entire battle lines of so much of what we argue today is controlled by our opposing forces, by the three groups that I just named, wokeism, Islamism, and global neoliberalism. You know, Mark, I think actually one of my favorite quotes is from the ancient Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu, who was a brilliant thinker 2.5 millennia, give or take, ago. And in ancient China, Sun Tzu had this wonderful line where he said that a battle is won before it is fought, because it is won by choosing the terrain on which it is fought. It's a very prescient insight. And all too often we see it play out in our day-to-day affairs, because the left is able to basically tell Jews and Christians, those who would talk about morality, who would talk about religion, Bible, you're a troglodyte. You're a vestige of a bygone era. You're anachronistic there. You know, how dare you, quote unquote, separation of church and state. They love to say that one there. How dare you take your arguments from faith and from scripture into the public square? So they basically tried to establish a barrier, a cordon sanitaire, you might say, and basically say to certain people that you can't take these forms of argumentation into the public square. So actually, Mark, in the final chapter of the book, the final chapter is called The Jewish-Christian Alliance to Save the West. Pretty much self-explanatory. I have an extended case arguing against so-called separation of church and state, which has done tremendous cultural harm, because it basically tells believers, especially our dear Christian friends, they cannot bring their faith into the public square. You're basically just telling them not to be who they are. And when you tell Jews that they can't be Jews, Christians that they can't be Christians there, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. You're basically undermining the entire predicate of your civilization, and you're very much, to get back to that Sun Tzu line, you're very much then allowing the left to define the terms on which all of our battles are fought. And when that happens, it's all downhill from there.
You know, I take what you say. It's very, very important. I've actually talked about this myself, but the way you focus on it in your book, and I mean, where do the ideas from the Declaration come? Where do the ideas from the Constitution come, and so forth and so on? And so when it comes to Islam per se, you know, my friend Zuhdi Jasser and I have talked about this over the years and so forth and so on. That faith, if you will, is stuck. It's stuck because the leadership, in many respects, wants it to be stuck. So I talk about, and see if you agree with this, I talk about sort of our faith and the Christian faith fusing with the Enlightenment. You point out, well, the Enlightenment is really because of these faiths, and I think that's true too. But even for non-believers, it fuses with these ideas and so forth. But the fundamentalists, it does not. Right? Does that make sense?
Well, let me try to respond by way of an example that I think you'll agree with, Mark. So you mentioned the Declaration. So I think about Jefferson's line in the Declaration that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And he was saying something very similar to what John Locke said about a century, give or take, prior in his second treatise during the Enlightenment over in England there. And I've often thought to myself, would it actually be self-evident for, let's say, a Taliban goat herder in the mountains of Afghanistan? Would it actually be self-evident that all men are created equal? And I conclude that the answer is no, that not every single person around the world could simply close his eyes, tap the old noggin between the ears, and say that all men are created equal. Rather, what allowed people like Jefferson and Locke to say that was the specific context, the cultural and civilizational milieu in which they were thinking and writing here. And that takes us back to what we were saying earlier, Mark, which is that milieu is the Bible. These men are thinking and writing and living and breathing in an overarching civilizational context where biblical values have predominated for thousands and thousands of years. And so, for instance, when you talk about all men are created equal, where is that coming from? Well, it's coming from Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, which I argue is the single foundational underpinning of all of Western civilization. This radical assertion very early on in the Bible that God made man in his image, male and female, he created them. This is a world-transforming claim. It's literally the 27th verse of the entire Bible there. That is ultimately where this notion of all men are created equal comes from there. So that's just one of many examples.
Very, very good. You can get the book at Amazon.com, America. You can get it on any of my platforms. We link to that. The book is Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. And great job. You know, ladies and gentlemen, last time his book came out, they didn't have enough books. So I didn't think that was very fair. So now they do have enough books. So go grab your copy. You're going to love the book. Josh, great job, and keep up the battle, brother.
Mark, God bless you. Thank you so much.
You too. Be well. He's a good guy. Very good guy. Very smart guy. You know, I reach a point in my life, reach an age where I'm not going to be here forever. It's important that we have a great group of young people who step up, and many of them are stepping up right now, and I want to give them some voice if I can. And Josh is definitely one of them. And there are others too, but this book is it's really a great book. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Jamie Raskin is making threats to members of this administration should they take over the House and or the Senate. He's making threats to foreign governments. I would encourage Republicans in the House of Representatives to file ethics complaints against Raskin for making these threats. It's one thing to say we disagree with the policies, and when we come into office, we're going to try and reverse them and so forth. But he's literally making threats. And this is what the Marxist-Stalinists do. So I want to strongly encourage Republicans in the House of Representatives to file at least one, perhaps multiple ethics complaints against Jamie Raskin right now for making threats against members of this administration, making threats against a foreign government, with all his BS about, constitutional crisis being caused by Trump and all. He's free to be a clown. He's free to be a demagogue and a propagandist. He's free to be a Stalinist and a Marxist. But he's not free. I repeat, he's not free to threaten members of this administration, to try and intimidate them, to try and bully them. He's not free to do that. And he's not free to threaten foreign governments and tell them, one day we'll be in control. And effectively, he's telling them, you're going to pay a price. So Jamie Raskin is persona non grata. Jamie Raskin is the enemy of the people. Jamie Raskin is among those who are the enemy from within. That's what he is. He's a coward. He's a gutless wonder who will not come on this show to debate me, to confront me, to go over the Constitution with me. He's a phony and a fraud. And the media are filled with phony and frauds that give him platforms. And I'm about sick and tired of it. These threats against Trump, both direct and indirect, these innuendos, the constant Hitler stuff still, Remember that old bastard, former Professor Lawrence Tribe? Effectively, that's what he said. And others. We've got to stand up to this, America. We have to stand up to it. It is the left that is violent. It is the left that is destructive. That's their history. That's who they are. That's what they believe. Listen to their Democrats. Listen to their media. Watch them. That is who they are. Raskin should be held to account and should have to answer. Not because we're authoritarians, because he's a Marxist who is making threats. He's the authoritarian. He's the autocrat. Bill in Florida. XM Satellite. Bill in Florida. Go right ahead, please.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for taking my call, and God bless you. I had two things for you to consider. The first is, it seems to me that Iran's comrades in North Korea and China and Russia would just give them nuclear weapons and tell them, well, wait, don't use them till you coordinate it with us, because we hate the United States and Israel just as much as you do. Mm-hmm. And I haven't heard anybody ever suggest that somebody would just give them a nuclear weapon. And the second thing is, I think that when you look at these rulings from the Supreme Court, like this most recent one concerning illegal aliens, that they should be some kind of they should be subject to checks and balances, just the way the rest of the federal government is. And it seems to me that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, could file some sort of lawsuit and have them each explain how the Constitution backs up their ruling.
No, you can't. I mean, now let's play this out. Who would they file the lawsuit with? The very people who you're targeting with the lawsuit? That's number one. Number two, you can't just file a lawsuit and say, explain yourself. It doesn't work that way. And it wouldn't matter anyway, because they don't care, in my humble opinion. So I don't think the solution is going to be with the district courts. And I'm starting to wonder if the solution is going to be with the Supreme Court, because they befuddle me as they confound themselves. I think the solution in the end may be the Congress. That's the bottom line. We'll see. Thank you for your call, my friend. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, and you, the American people. Thank God for each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. And we're going to discuss a lot more issues tomorrow as well. And I'll see you then. God bless.